Enemy of the state.
An enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state.
Dank Pod Stash.
You're listening to Enemy of the State's Dank Pod Stash. Check out thedankpodstash.com to find every episode of the Dank Pod Stash, links to support the show via our BitBacker and Patreon, Dank Pod Stash merchandise, and much more. If you'd like to advertise on the Dank Pod Stash, email us at dankpodstash@gmail.com. Hey, this is your host, NonVotingNick. Before we jump into today's show, let me bring you a special offer from my friend Shane Radliff over at Liberty Under Attack Publications. Shane has an offer for Dank Pod Stash listeners to take 10% off your order by using coupon code DANK10. Just go to libertyunderattack.com. Shane has books focusing on self-liberation, freedom strategies, solutions, and more. His current books are #Agora, Second Realm book on strategy, Ben Stone's Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage, and Shane's very own Vanu, a strategy for self-liberation, among others. He also offers assistance to new authors throughout the publishing process, editing, proofreading, formatting for Kindle and paperback, and full-service audiobook productions. That's Liberty Under Attack Publications. Share your story, find your freedom. I'd also like to give a shout-out to Bad Moon Hemp. Check out badmoonhemp.wordpress.com. Bad Moon Hemp is your one-stop shop for all your handmade hemp needs. I use Bad Moon Hemp's beard oil and beard balm. It's awesome stuff. Be sure to check them out and enjoy the show. Welcome, fellow enemies of the state, to episode 48 of Enemy of the State's Dank Pod Stash. I'm your host, NonVotingNick, and I'm joined today by Nicky P and Lizzie of Many Talents, Projects, Endeavors, and I'm going to let them tell you all about them. What's going on, y'all?
Howdy.
What's up?
I don't know, Liz, do you want to do the breakdown?
I mean, I am the co-host of Sounds Like Liberty, which is started as a libertarian music discovery podcast, and it now is just kind of like libertarian culture and culture in general, and like let's just meet cool people and talk to them. Nikki's got a few other projects going on though.
I also do the This Week in Liberpods podcast, where I send out and blast 5 different libertarian podcasts that people may or may not know about in an effort to try and help people find their new favorite libertarian podcast, because there's so many voices doing this that it's sometimes unmanageable, and a lot of podcasts just kind of get swept under the rug. Like I literally, one of my favorite podcasts was a podcast for a year before I'd ever heard about it, and I'm like way tied into the podcasting libertarian game. And so I figured there's got to be somebody going out there to try and like proselytize to the choir, so to speak. On top of that, I also have Free Market Green Earth from my friend Ben Pangy and I of the Homesteads and Homeschools podcast. Talk about environmental issues from a free market anarchist perspective.
Sweet.
I say we talk about it from the anarchist perspective, but I don't want to focus too much on that side of things, because I think that it does us no harm to, if we can get the like Republican side of things to at least think more in a free market approach and have the backing to do that. That's only positive for us either way.
Sure.
Because like there's a lot of damage that happens to the environment, and the biggest parts of that are, without question, the Liz, what are you doing?
For those listening, they just fell. Everything fell, but it's all good.
Yeah. All right, let's see.
There's those beautiful
Okay,
faces.
just don't touch anything.
Yeah, I don't know why you're bumping things in the first place.
Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, everybody, it's well documented that all the biggest polluters in the world are governments.
Mm-hmm.
And coincidentally, the largest government in the world, China, is also the biggest polluter in the world. It's funny also because they act as though we have a huge pollution problem here in the U.S. And the fact of the matter is that we do more to curb our own pollution than any nation in the country, in the world. And yet we sit here and internalize our problems in the strangest of ways.
Mm.
I also host the Introvert Musician podcast, which has kind of been on hiatus, so I'm trying to figure out what to do with it exactly. The idea was to try and help musicians like myself, who may or may not be type A personalities, go out and monetize what they do, performance-wise.
That's awesome.
So I kind of do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I talk about music and freedom.
Right.
That's probably two of the most fun topics to talk about. So I'm definitely down with that. You were saying about China being the number one polluter. I've been curious about that because I've heard a bunch of different stuff. The U.S. military is the number one polluter, China, and then because people like to focus on the straws and the sea turtles' noses and all that stuff, and say, well, we got to ban straws. So,
well, yeah, I think officially the U.S. is the biggest. The U.S. military in particular is the world's biggest polluter. If we're looking at like ocean runoff, however, I believe ocean runoff, China has all of the major waterways that are just consistently dumping shit into the oceans. Most of the last I was reading, most of the stuff in the ocean honestly comes from China, because they have those giant cities, and they're on the industrial rise. Like they're like we've actually done things in our culture to curb what would be the normal waste. So we do pretty good for ourselves. Not to say we're perfect and couldn't be better, but I think the important thing is to incentivize properly. That's one of the things. Like I come from like the Austrian school. Came up listening to Tom Woods and Bob Murphy. And the big thing that I take away from all that is literally everything is about incentives, and the way that a state is set up only incentivizes bad applications of things.
Right.
The more we get it back to us having to deal with ourselves, the more likely our problems are to be solved, because it puts the onus on us to actually deal with things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, personal responsibility. Are you in the free market environmentalism, green agorism group at all on Facebook? Because I think they would dig your podcast.
I believe so. I think my buddy Ben, that's the one. Is it Jimerson?
Yeah. Yep. Michael Jimerson.
Yeah, he's the one that runs that. Yep, we're in there.
Nice.
I generally post when we have new podcasts up.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. Everybody has a rotating list of 100 and something fucking podcasts nowadays. I rarely get to anywhere near all of them, but I'm actually stoked to dive more into your guys' endeavors in the podcasting world. I'm super stoked for Sounds Like Liberty, and I love This Week in LiberPods. That's awesome. And thanks for featuring this show on there too. I really like that it's broken down, like you said, into like 5 shows so people can find new stuff, because shit, with 100 podcasts, you can't listen to all of them in a day or a week or whatever. And that was really awesome to go through and listen to different snippets of really interesting stuff and be like, oh, I'm going to go check out that show. That's great.
Well, I think if you went back, I think I've had 7 episodes so far, and I've covered 35 podcasts, 35 different ones. And the idea is just to give you a sense of what each podcast is about. I'm not trying to condense everything down. It's just, here's what they sound like. Maybe this is your thing. And like there's been a lot of different kind of podcasts on there. The one thing I'm trying to grapple with is how to do news podcasts in that format, because that is a little difficult.
Sure.
Sometimes there's just a lot of information, and you're like, you're trying to keep things entertaining, and sometimes that doesn't always come across that way. Like, well, I'm a big fan of Kyle Anslone, the Foreign Policy Focus podcast, but I wouldn't know what 5 minutes of any jam-packed episode to send to put in there, because it's so dense, much density and information.
Oh yeah.
It's easier with a show like yours, where it's good conversation, and you can find just like the real sparkly bit out of an hour-long conversation.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, what were they talking about? I gotta go figure out what the rest of this thing was, because that sounded silly.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it for sure. Hook people in. Tell us more about Sounds Like Liberty. I'm really curious about that one.
Well, we've done a lot of different things with it. Like I said, we started as a music discovery podcast. We were going on Bandcamp. We've also talked to a lot of libertarian musicians, and we weren't actually aware that there were so many people who were connected to liberty and also in music. And once we started doing the show, we actually just sort of discovered all of these great bands and artists and musicians. So it's super cool.
As a musician myself, like one of the things, let's put it this way, for reasons of keeping my income and the way that I make money as a musician, I can't be very vocal about my political views.
Sure.
As far as I kind of have to keep it separate from my, to a degree, I have to keep it separate from my work because, I go out, I make my money in music, performing covers in very, very general audiences. And I do well for it. I make good money. Let's be honest, the freedom market's a pretty niche thing. So if I only start doing shows to the few libertarians in my audience, probably not going to be making much money to support a family for very long. But so what you find is that there's a lot of people out there and some pretty popular bands that are, they basically just kind of keep it close to their vest. I don't know if you listen to Lions of Liberty at all. They actually had a friend of mine, JJ Boogie, on.
I have not.
Who is the current guitar player. He's a current guitar player for Arrested Development.
Oh, wow.
Which, if you can imagine, this big beardly Italian man who's a Rothbardian anarchist on a tour bus with a bunch of militant black people. Militant progressive black people. That's probably the more important part of that.
Yeah, mixing it up a little bit.
But
sure.
He's got some. Well, but the thing is like even he'll say, he's had some conversations with people, and he's had some of them where he just, doesn't let it go. But then he's also had the conversations where, so and so will kind of text him after the conversation, like I can't say this in front of everybody else, but I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
And so much of just being a musician and being, an anarchist is a lot of that, I know I'm right because history dictates that I'm right.
Sure.
I'm not the one here ignoring all of the factual evidence. So whatever makes you comfortable, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole idea for me when I initially started the show without my wife, but I got annoyed spending not as much time with her as I'd like to.
Right.
And talking just by myself is a bit annoying. I like talking to people, and so it just seemed like a natural thing to bring her on. And we'll do lyrical analysis, and for a long time we were doing. I heard this happen, and we'd go on Bandcamp, and we each pick an album that we liked that came out that week. But I think we started moving away from being as music focused because I think our audience is perhaps too autistic for that. So I'll work the music questions in, a little bit more in general conversation than I used to. I used to grill people. Like I demanded you show up with your top 5 albums of all time.
Oh, geez.
And I'm asking you like what the most important song you've ever had in a moment is.
Well, I mean, we've had some different, like I said, we've tried some different things, and you grow as a podcast, and you try different things, and you see what works, and and I'm really excited that just our audience has kind of grown with us, and we're still doing it. It's been a while now.
Yeah.
Well, some people send us money too, so there's always that. I'm way down with that.
That is always nice. Absolutely. Yeah. Try to, at least recoup some of the expenses for making this awesome content. That's great. I like those questions, though. I like the in-depth questions. And I can definitely see people getting put on the spot.
I've had some fun answers, and then I've had some answers that I'm just like, and I'll stand by this. So far, our worst guest to date was a musician, sadly. And I've never talked to a musician who had less feelings about music than this person. Yeah, it was what it was.
Yeah, that sounds awkward.
So
I tend not to trust people who are just like, yeah, I don't really like music. Just not a genre or anything like that. They're just like, nah, music, whatever. Like, what?
Well, I mean, this is a professional musician. Like,
yeah.
They make their living as a musician. And you're like, you have decidedly few opinions for someone that does this for a living.
Well,
I don't know.
maybe it's burnout. Who knows?
Like, you are a creator.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it could be.
That's true. I think they've kind of moved on where all they care about is Bitcoin now.
Yeah,
Mm.
there you go.
Interesting.
But the community that we gained from the show is actually how I found my way to anarchism, because I
cool.
was kind of politically
Apolitical.
Yes, I was apolitical and not terribly interested, and I actually ended up reading a book to do a review, and it was a homeschool and
Roger Paxton narrated a homeschool book, and I made her read it.
but it was written from an anarchist perspective, and they really broke down sort of the reasons why you can't separate the idea of the state from the idea of force.
So I went to sleep at about 3 a.m, and then she came home from work at about 9 and said, "Hi, I'm an anarchist."
Yeah, basically. And by the time I got to the end of the book, I was just like, well, okay, I'm convinced. There we go.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
I always was one.
Hell yeah. And you guys were speaking before about, kind of having to keep it on the down low depending on the scene and whatnot, if you're a musician in certain scenes and whatnot. And that's interesting because I came to anarchy pretty much through music, through the punk scene. I was in a punk band way back in the day, and that's kind of, you wear it on your sleeve if you're an anarchist. So it varies from place to place, but depending on what type of anarchist you are too, and in what punk scene.
Well, and there lies that many of the quote unquote punks out there tend to be ANCOMs, and I'm more than happy to let them collectivize as long as they stay off of my property. And then I'll homestead theirs after they die. But that's neither here nor there.
There's always trade.
But no, I came up in a punk scene too. Surprisingly, I think there were a lot of tiny little punk cells in rural areas, because what do angry young white people in the country have to do other than make music? And the easiest music to make is punk. So we all just kind of fell into it, I think. So I always have that, but I also grew up, growing up in a rural area. I think there was always just that culture of, responsibility, because you're kind of the only people who can take care of you. There's nobody rushing into any of those shitty counties in New York State that are economically depressed, and we ship off what little wealth we have to New York City to rob us blind, or Albany, whatever the hell it is. You just watch everything kind of move out of your area, and things don't ever get better. And all the decisions that could help you are made against you by people that have never seen your way of life. It was real frustrating.
Yeah. So
I think that kind of kept me from going the more centrally planned way of anarchism, we'll just say. So I don't even remember the answer to the question that you asked, but it seemed like a fun story.
I was mesmerized by your awesome monologue there. I don't even remember what I asked. So just talking about the differences, and I think in how open you can be about your politics in different scenes. And that's
that's right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it really depends. I'm not shy politically about what I believe. I'm not going to go out on stage or probably use my my personal Facebook account to make a ton of really, really strong claims, just because, number one, I can't have my Facebook page taken down because I need it for work. I can't go out and promote my shows for the actual business to normies without that. So unfortunately, I kind of have to. I keep things close to my chest. Most of what I do talk about is within closed groups and things like that.
Sure.
So that being said, I'm not cracking jokes on stage typically that I don't think a normie audience would take. However, I do also have a performance that I do. It's kind of a spin-off of one of my projects me and my friends do, called Freedom Song 365 Project, where since every day this year, we've analyzed a different song with a freedom message.
Oh, wow.
And we've done write-ups on it. And It's been awesome, but it's also been a whole hell of a lot of work. I think we've literally, I think last I heard, we've written more than A Tale of Two Cities between the three of us
Jeez.
so far this year.
That's crazy. Every
But it is
single day.
amazing. Yeah.
I'll get you a link and have a look at it. But I took some highlights from that, and so I have a performance that I can do. We did it up at Porkfest this year, actually, called Songs of Freedom. And I picked some of my stipulations where I wanted to pick stuff that had to actually hit the charts. So it had to be a Billboard charting song, and I tried to keep it all top 40. And there is a surprising amount of music that has very, very strong, freedom messages. The one that really struck me, since somebody turned me on to it, is the first song we did for the Freedom Song Project was by Mike and the Mechanics. What's the name of the song? Silent Running.
Yeah.
Which, if you've never listened to the song, I know it's number 2 on Billboard.
Yeah, it was up there.
So if you can imagine a song on number 2, it's number 2 on Billboard, with the lyrics in the second verse. There's a gun and ammunition just inside the doorway. Use it in case of emergency.
Hell yeah.
I can't even imagine that being in a song now. There's a whole third verse to the song where it is teach the children quietly, because never let them know. Was it basically beware the church and state is the moral of the story.
Yeah.
And teach your kids underground
so they can rise up
because to rise up before we stand still is the idea.
Yeah.
It's
legit.
So crazy anarchist and it was just hilarious because it's this 80s pop song written by the dude from Genesis.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, Genesis, those guys are pretty deep.
Sang by the dude from. Oh yeah, I mean, I for a while there I was actually fronting a 70s prog tribute, so I've done a bunch of Genesis on stage.
Nice.
Lots of Genesis, lots of Rush.
Yeah, and Rush is just a whole nother show there.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, we did a bunch of shows on Rush.
Are you hitting those notes?
Yeah, they're sad. Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah,
man.
no, I am one of those rare people with a crazy high voice. You couldn't tell right now because I'm just waking up, so I haven't had time to stretch out the vocal cords. If you want some videos, I'll send you some videos of us doing some Rush. What do we do? Red Bar Cheddar. I've got some videos I think of us doing.
Nice.
Hell yeah. Damn. You guys dive deep into this stuff.
Honestly, it's the Yes. The Yes was the harder material to do, honestly. That John Anderson stuff.
Damn. Yeah, I don't envy you. I definitely could not hit anywhere near that. I try in the car sometimes, and it just makes me feel bad. So I'll just listen.
There's some fun videos of us. Some videos of us doing Roundabout. Probably the highest note that I've ever had to hit on stage is in Space Trucking.
Oh gosh.
By Deep Purple.
Oh man.
And that one was I'm only doing this song if I feel like it tonight. Sometimes at the end of the night you're just not quite there.
Yeah, I hear that. That's awesome. Fucking A. So yeah, so have you traveled a lot with all these projects, or do you kind of remain local?
Honestly, not yet, but we are seriously looking at, in the future, we want to find more libertarians. We want to get more into the community, and it seems like, that might be a thing that happens.
She's being incredibly vague about this because she doesn't want to hold herself to a standard. No, we're talking about becoming schoolies and getting a bus and just traveling around the country doing that. I kind of have a vision of having little plots of land with perhaps a permaculture forest on them.
Yeah. And you just stop, and that's your cash, and you harvest, and then you move on to the next place. You play festivals in between.
Yeah.
That'd be sweet.
I really like the community aspect of getting more libertarians and anarchists together. So, we made a decision, I think even before our daughter was born, that we were going to homeschool, and we started on that path. And I'm doing everything I can right now to, get out of having a boss and having a day job where, I have to show up, and because I'm not that I don't like working. I work my ass off. But in the same vein, I would like the idea if I want to go off and take a week off to go to PorkFest, be able to do that.
Right.
I want to go to Childeberg, and do the LNC this year.
And let's face it, all of my skills are like homestead skills. They're not like modern day in an office skills. So, I'm going to be more useful in that life than I am in this one right now.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah,
I don't know about all that. I don't know how to do techie stuff myself, so advertising, that's a goal.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing that pays for the other thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna become an expert advertiser and marketer. That's my new thing.
Yeah, that stuff's hard. You got to learn that stuff. But it seems like everybody who's kind of deep into the community has a lot of the same goals. I like seeing that, homeschooling, homesteading, maybe traveling, staying mobile, and through it all spreading the message one way or another. That's pretty awesome. I think there's a lot of solidifying of the ideas like we were talking about at the maybe before the show, I can't remember, but with the standing on the shoulders of giants, the previous generations of philosophers, and now people are putting it into action. It's really great to see.
Well, I think what... Oh, go ahead.
You're good.
Well, I think what, the whole internet connection thing, social media, as much as there are some drawbacks, what it's given us is that knowledge that, it's not just 12 people in a room. There are, people who think this way all over, and if we can connect with each other, maybe even by going and visiting each other.
Well, I mean, I know that, PorkFest isn't the biggest it's ever been right now. But even, I'm going to say right now, walking into that camping situation and just being in a valley with a bunch of people that are on board with you.
Yeah.
Like, I think for us, like, we walked there. I barely saw my 5-year-old daughter for most of the time because she found some other kids and they ran off and they did kid things. And it's like, come find us every hour or so, just so we know you're okay. And we'd run into her from time to time. Meanwhile, we're going out and meeting new people, watching people speak, just taking in all the guns that are everywhere.
Yeah.
But getting to actually live out that idea of autonomy, like, that's really cool.
It was such a comfortable thing, though. Like, 'cause you go a lot of places and you see a bunch of people with guns just kind of chilling in flip-flops, and you're like, should I be concerned here? But there, it just, it felt like, no, these are my people. Like, these are the people I'm supposed to be around. You're up all night discussing, which is the proper Bitcoin philosophy and, which crypto is going to be the one that actually overtakes everything and why. And that's knowing that those people are out there, it's very comforting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you pay attention to the news, it's just, you see everything being swallowed up by just absolute craziness. So it's nice to just know you're not alone.
Yeah.
And the internet's been good for that. Has it made it easier for them to find all of us? Well, perhaps. I don't know.
That's a whole nother thing.
Let's just say I'm never going on the Contra cruise because I don't think you should have that many libertarians on a boat in the middle of the ocean.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's a good call.
That just screams sink me.
Yeah. Man, yeah. That I haven't been to any of the big fests. I've met a few people, in real life from that I've made friends with from the internet, and it's been extremely enjoyable. Made solidified those friendships, and I always think of when I think of gatherings of like-minded people, it always brings me back to the Bundy Ranch standoff. Just in case something shitty happens, it'd be nice to have a bunch of people around. And then I think about how spread out everybody I know is. And everybody has different ideas of where they want to homestead or what city they want to live in. And I don't know if anybody's going to get together permanently, but growing the numbers separately would work as well.
Well, the thing that I always come back to is first off, I understand why people do the homesteading thing, and if that's your choice, absolutely go and do that. Personally, I like the division of labor that came up through society, and I'm excited that I don't have to be a farmer. Like, that's a positive for me. I get when people, controlling the source of where things come from, and in my own way, like I make very good mental notes of the people that do what and where I've got to go when I need to do things.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always been of the mind, I know if things ever got real bad, it's a couple hours back home
Mm-hmm.
into the woods, and we can go and hide in the forest forever with my people.
Sure.
So, I know the people that make guns. so I kind of keep tabs on the things that I need to know for when, if and when that, like, because the thing is I don't know about you, I have a daughter, and so I would particularly like to avoid the boogaloo if at all possible.
Sure.
And so I'm more hoping for financial collapse of the U.S. than anything else, and hopefully that can be kind of a restart for a lot of the bullshit.
Yeah.
But you got to be prepared for what you got to be prepared for.
Yeah, that's something we've brought up
What do you think?
with a couple different people, is the boogaloo, and whether or not that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. I don't think that in any way will ever be a good thing, because there's going to be lives lost in a major way, tons of lives lost, no matter how it goes. But I don't know if something like that is inevitable or not. I think with economic collapse, a boogaloo of sorts would happen. Whether or not it's people versus government, or just looters and people who weren't prepared trying to take from those who were prepared, who knows? And the thing I've said before on the show and asked people is, are we going straight to the boogaloo, or do you think we're going to hit a militarized police state and just full authoritarianism before that? It's going to get nuts one way or another, I think. I don't see a happy, easy way out of this.
Well, and I think I've even talked about it with you before. I think that a police state in the U.S. is unlikely. And the reason it's unlikely is because there's too many fucking guns.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, the bottom line is cops are already scared of the citizens in a lot of cases. Look at them coming out across the country, this is the, because that one cop got fired. He didn't even go to jail. It's got fired for what he did to that, that gentleman. And was it Eric Garner? Is that the one I think it was, or was it?
There's
I
a
can't
whole
remember
slew
which
of them.
There's too many of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's too many cases of it.
Yeah.
And the cops are already talking about, we're not comfortable out here. Good. And we'll be first to say my little brother's a cop, so I make no bones about the way I feel about things to him either. It's like, this is nothing that you guys haven't brought on yourselves by the way the policing is done in this nation. So enjoy what you've brought on yourselves.
Yeah.
I hate to see anything happen to my brother, but you chose a stupid profession, bro. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
Yeah, that's gotta be rough.
So it's terrible. What's terrible is he's probably one of the more liberty-minded people I know. He's a fucking cop. Like, outside of that stupid little blind spot that he has there, like, he's a pretty freedom-oriented guy.
Is he think along the lines of change it from the inside?
No, I think he's just able to compartmentalize, and somebody's got to be in charge, might as well be me. Okay. And I think there are those people that, you take Bastiat's the law, and most of us get out of that, the law is something that everyone's got to be privy to and has to be, underneath. And there are those that think that there has to be some kind of ruling caste. And unfortunately, as long as there's going to be a ruling caste, I guess he would err on the side of being part of it than not.
Right. That makes sense.
I like to do my best to make it a not thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's odd. Like I said, a lot of things changed when I had my daughter, because even when I'm doing the Freedom Song 365 project, and I'm down here in the middle of the night writing up my my write-ups on some of the material, I'm always like, is this going to be the day that, like, they pop through the door in black bags, they've been scanning my IP, and they're monitoring my keystrokes, and this is going to be the sentence?
Yeah.
But,
yeah, there's interesting situations with that popping up now. I can't remember the exact specifics, but there was a guy that people are saying got arrested over boogaloo memes and saying stuff about the boogaloo, but apparently he was premeditating a shooting as well. So who knows about the headlines on that.
Well, I mean, that means he was being courted by the FBI, is all that means.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and there's a degree of that. I always have to be concerned, I always joke about Arvin Vora, who's one of the big, LP personalities. I'm pretty sure Arvin's a Fed. You don't be that ideologically pure without trying to incite something. most people have some kind of realistic and rational take on this. It's like, you're too balls to the wall, man. Like I can't possibly believe you're a real person. So
it's funny you say that.
And I've
man.
had other.
It's funny you say that because I
I've
couldn't get anything but politician speech out of him on the show. It's not, he's had that voice and his message he wanted to get across. I was like, dude, just talk to me, but wasn't happening.
He's very good at that, but you should check out our interview with him. It was something.
It was certainly something.
Yeah.
I purposely did it because they were boycotting him at our state convention. Like
So we were like, let's get him on the show then.
Yeah, I'll ruffle some feathers.
There you go.
Because I did push back on a bunch of things because he's someone who definitely touts himself, for being a businessman and being a salesman and stuff. And I'm like, well, anyone who does sales knows that the only way you sell anything is you have to enter the conversation that people are already having in their heads. And I'm sorry, Arvind, no one is having the age of consent conversation in their heads right now. It's just, that's not the conversation. So if you're trying to sell this to people, you're taking the wrong approach in that regard. And I will say this. I don't know that I've heard anyone interview him that has gotten as much of a,
I mean,
Nice.
I felt pretty excited that I managed to almost not let's say put him backpedaling, but I got him to stop for a minute because he gets right on message and just really drives it home.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely have to check.
What a fun
that
conversation.
Out. He's definitely
he likes the
interesting
Rolling
to talk
Stones.
to. Oh, okay. I would not have guessed that. I don't know what he would have liked, but Rolling Stones would not be something I would guess he would like.
We also had the fun conversation about white supremacy with him.
Oh boy.
Because, people think he's a white supremacist. And
everybody's racist.
Well, my point being is that, don't you have to be white to be a white supremacist?
You would think that. You would think that, but they're already starting to say that about Dave Chappelle after this last special. So.
I know. It's internalized. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, just in the same way that I don't love my wife. This is just imperialism.
Well, in
modern age.
Right.
Is he Dave Chappelle or is he Clayton Bixby? We need the answers to these questions now.
No. Okay, so no. Well, in fairness, if you watch the epilogue, and I'm assuming that you have watched the epilogue, watched the stand-up special.
Mm-hmm.
I've been of the mind that Dave Chappelle has been trying to low-key red pill people for a while now, and I've never been more sure of it than I was after this, because while it's a fun story, is there any real reason to have that story putting Newsom, Kamala Harris, head of the NAACP, Barack Obama, all these people that are real important right now and have been real important in politics for a while?
Kind of in the same group.
Why were those people all in the same room 15 years ago?
Imagine that.
A decade and a half ago. So, to me, the whole thing screamed like him a wink and a nod saying, look, this is what you're up against.
Mm-hmm. It's
been the way it's been, and it's going to be the way it's going to be unless you pay attention.
Right.
And especially if you know a lot of the story behind what really happened with Chappelle. I don't know if you can get into the real conspiracy minded stuff where
let's do it.
Essentially Cosby was blackmailing him and was threatening his life and stuff like that. I don't know how much of that I believe, but I will say it is coincidental that Cosby was kind of being Me Too'd at the time that Dave made his comeback. So perhaps it was part of the dethroning of Cosby that brought Chappelle back. I don't know. Things line up sometimes in odd ways.
They do. I
don't know how conspiratorial you're willing to get on here.
Oh, dude. We've had whole shows with Jeremy Harding, one of my buddies, on some deep cut conspiracy. We went over the Denver airport for an hour, I think, on his show. It was pretty nuts.
Jeremiah Harding has been the longest episode to date we've ever recorded.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I had to break our episode. I had to break our episode into 2 episodes because we went for over 3 hours, and I think the only reason we stopped was because literally we had to go take care of our kid. We could have just kept going for probably another 2 or 3.
Hell yeah.
That dude will just talk, and I'll go with it too. Like I'm completely cool with it.
It's a wealth of information.
It was literally just amazing. I mean, and I did feel like the FBI was monitoring everything he said in that particular conversation.
It's like there's been enough keywords that have passed in this conversation.
Well, I mean, while I, in my normal day-to-day life, am pretty, I'll just say, pretty conscious of what I'm saying. I don't get the impression that Jeremy cares a whole hell of a lot about what he says.
Never.
I'm on some FBI watch lists. I think he's on all the FBI watch lists.
Yes, all the watch lists of all the alphabet agencies.
I'm not. Just out of curiosity. So if we were talking conspiracies, maybe I should talk to Jeremy about this one. I made a meme probably a year ago. This has always fascinated me. Now, who is the company that owns Google?
Yeah, I have no idea. I've heard China owns Google. I've heard a fucking shit ton of things about Google.
Let's. So there's an actual company that owns Google called Alphabet. And I've always wondered if this was a low-key joke about the fact that they were just run by the government. In other words, the Alphabet Soup Agency.
Yeah. Nice.
So, you know, what's the best way to hide other than to put it in plain sight?
Wasn't that supposed to be like one of the esoteric things? They
that
have
makes
to tell
sense.
you without telling.
Hell yeah, they loved if you buy into the dark occultists run the world, or even if it's not dark occultists, whoever the fuck it is, people putting the symbols out there and flaunting it, that absolutely goes right along with that.
In other words, the Denver airport.
Yeah. Shit.
But out of curiosity, did you ever go and listen to that episode I sent you about the Storm Area 51 and that soldier who was talking about it? Because there was so much interesting information in there.
I didn't get to that one.
And dude, you missed out on it because basically, well, people haven't really thought about this because to get to Area 51, you have to like go 21 miles through the fucking desert of nothing. Like that's after you've gotten through the gates.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't have to do much to stop people, really.
Yeah.
One of the things that he brought up was he's like, the problem that people are really going to face is if they do manage to get in there, there's private contractors that are hired in there that don't have to abide by all the same governmental rules and protocols that like you do if you're in the service.
Yeah. They
just kind of shimmy them out the door when everything's done. So it's like that's the worst case scenario is you actually got close. Now, mind you, I don't think there's anything in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like for the most part, it's all but declassified at this point, anyways.
Right.
Like they did that probably 50. Was it 10 years ago they did that? Like Obama, I think, declassified everything.
Somebody, yeah.
There's nothing there, but the idea is intriguing nonetheless.
Yeah, that's my whole fascination. The willingness to create a group, out in the open, like, hey, we're going into this secret base, and it gets hundreds of thousands or millions of people interested. And then there was just a headline yesterday about saying Trump is going to gain some popularity points going into this election cycle by declassifying a whole lot more UFO shit. Who fucking knows?
No.
Who even knows what would be in there?
Yeah. Oh shit! Like no one cared about the Hillary Clinton emails after they were declassified, after they were opened up. Everybody was all balls to the wall trying to figure out or get her to release them or get whoever to release them. And then they're out, and there's literal talk of pedophilia going on in the emails, and what? Nothing. Fucking nothing. Same with every everything with the Epstein implications and stuff. And now, if you want to get down a really deep, put on your tinfoil hats here. This is one of the funnier ones I've heard lately. Is that this hurricane that's coming in to Florida and all that is crossing Pedophile Island to wipe out all of the evidence left over there. Weather engineering.
Interesting. That is an interesting theory, though.
Not much to say about that.
You can jump on that kind of stuff. Well, no, it's not that there's not much to say about it. The fact of the matter is but that's something you can expect to happen, and I think that's probably maybe the more insidious nature of it. Is just any kind of organization that is able to make these kind of moves has been doing this a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just things that happen naturally in the world that you can rely on to kind of clean up messes.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, yeah, it's a perfect place to build your island in the middle of a place that can be destroyed often. And if you're not there to take care of it, no one's going to think anything of it.
Right.
So, you know, your destruction plan, you know, your will burn after reading is built right into the system, the way it all happened.
Yeah.
So
If there's no one to put it on lockdown when the storm's coming.
I've been listening to too much Prop Report lately. Monica puts that hat on you, and you're everything's a prop. Everything's a psyop.
Speaking of that, what do you think about, you know, Illuminati symbolism? Where, you know, I don't buy into that, so I don't know what the fucking terms are. But Illuminati symbols and whatnot in music, in popular music and stuff like that.
I'm gonna be honest. Like the whole Illuminati thing, I don't know that I really buy into in any meaningful way. I mean, the fact of the matter is yeah, there's fucking rich, powerful people out there all the time, and they're kind of doing what they're gonna do. And maybe there's even richer people, but the way that they have control, I think, is just, you know, you make a lot of bets, and eventually some of them pan out. As far as in the music, the degree that it's there, I imagine it has more to do with, you know, people wanting to be a part of something.
Mm-hmm.
Like if there's Illuminati imagery in music, it's because people are trying to become. It's like, please notice me. I want to be a part of things. I want to have my life. Now, is it possible? Like the whole pedophilia thing is a weird thing, and I don't know that I would say go Illuminati with it. But the fact of the matter is that that's an easy way to get control of people.
Right.
I want to have Monica on because I want to actually have the conversation about, so what about Chester Benningfield and Chris Cornell, who, you know, what about Anthony Bourdain? There's an awful lot of people strangling themselves in the past couple years.
Yep.
You know, it just, does it happen to do with the rise of Alex Jones and like constantly not shutting up about the whole pedophile thing? I don't know. And if you were on the fence as a like, obviously those kind of people would hang out on the edge of like the elite.
Right.
Musicians I don't really think of as being the elite, because if you're as artists, you're always innately going to be a little off. That's kind of what makes you an artist. So I think there's a degree to which maybe that those people probably knew something, how much I don't know, and they were having difficulty dealing with it. That they couldn't keep the secrets anymore. And you know, those kind of things happen.
That's interesting, because that's something that I'd heard too, kind of similar to that Chester and Chris Cornell. Well, Chester specifically was kind of brought up in that scene, groomed, I guess, and then went years and years dealing with that. And then him and Chris Cornell, and I'm assuming a lot of other people, were working to expose it and stop that from happening, and then they happened to suicide themselves. So another deep cut.
I mean, look at the Corey Haim, Corey Feldman shit. Like, I mean, there's a lot of people. It's just kind of hard to not think something is going on there.
Right. Okay. So,
and especially when you have like
why does everyone always why does everyone always like say they're going to drop names, or I have this information and I'm going to drop it if X or Y happens, and then nobody ever drops the information? I personally don't think they have it, and they're looking for money or something like that, but
who knows? You know, that could just be people kind of, you know, it's they're weighing the option. You know, you have, say, like in the case of a Corey Feldman, maybe he, in his case, like it's something he'd want to do, but, you know, it would be too obvious if something happened to him untoward. And so like they don't bother to go through the full on get rid of him route, but they manage to keep him appeased for a little bit longer.
Sure.
I mean, let's be honest, there's no reason for Corey Feldman to still have money. He hasn't done anything useful or worthwhile in a long fucking time. So the fact that he's not a pauper is a testament to something's going on there.
Yeah.
Well, if they can manage you look, crazy enough,
Well,
like people aren't really gonna buy.
well, and
whatever
that's
you're
why
saying,
we were talking
too.
about Chappelle earlier. I was, reading kind of like the quote unquote Illuminati history of, the black comedian. And one of the things that they talk about was, in particular, what's his name there? Martin Lawrence.
Hmm.
Get Martin Lawrence, you got Eddie Murphy, you got Dave Chappelle, all these young black men who at the peak of their fucking careers just lose their minds apparently. Just fucking, off the deep end. Is that something that just happens naturally, or is there some reason that happens?
That's interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Let's be honest.
It seems like they attribute it to not being able to handle fame very well.
Well, because it's an easy scapegoat.
Yeah, exactly.
The bottom line is the black constituency in the U.S. is a huge voting bloc, and frankly, they vote against their own best interest a hell of a lot of the time. And perhaps keeping them voting against their own best interests is the, why certain people are allowed to get big in the first place. Who knows?
Interesting.
Like I said, you can go down so many rabbit holes you can go down on that, and that's not music. Not music or the environment.
Music adjacent.
So what?
I guess it is music adjacent.
Are you getting at that the messages of these comedians before they lose it is, more revolutionary or less revolutionary, and they come back revolutionary, or what?
Well, I don't think it's about revolution. I don't think it's even the message that they have. I think it's that them as people is something that you can't have. You can't have a young black comedian who's not towing the party line. That's the thing. It's just by being someone who's willing to cast doubt on the establishment, you're a problem. It doesn't even matter what their message is. They can be towing the message, in their art, but if they're personally not doing that, the fact of the matter is this isn't the 1800s and all people have is what you wrote. You're under a watchful eye constantly thanks to the media. So literally everything you do is examined for what it is.
Right.
That's why I think the whole Chappelle thing is super interesting to me because, what is being said here? Because I can't imagine that the way he's done things has been not very deliberate. And is it am I seeing what it is, or is there something else going on that I'm missing because I'm just predisposed to see that message?
Right.
I don't know.
Might have to watch that one.
Liz doesn't do conspiracy. She's over here.
I mean, sometimes it's hard, to ignore stuff, but that is something you got to think about because it keeps coming up.
Well, once again, when it all boils down to it, is when you have kids, just like what kind of world am I leaving them to?
Sure.
Like, ugh.
Well, and
I really want her to have to deal with anything.
Yeah, it's like what is it? The story of the monk and the fig tree, or the date tree, the date palm. He's planting a tree, and someone asks him, "Why the hell are you planting that? You're not going to be able to harvest anything for years." And it's a joke, but just that idea of planting something that future generations can, take advantage of and have a wonderful future from. That's, I think, the goal of most everybody in this community. There are some that want to see it now, see freedom, liberty now, but that's a hard sell for me. I think that would take a lot of.
I don't think people are ready for it.
No, yeah, absolutely not. That's why the boogaloo is not going to work out.
I've described myself for a while as, I guess, an evolutionary ANCAP, because, I think that it is the only way to organize human beings. I don't know that humanity is capable of doing that yet. I don't think that we have the the brain power collectively. The fact of the matter is, we do still have monkeys out there running around as people.
Sure.
They're just fucking a bunch of stupid Neanderthals.
Right.
And as long as they're out there doing that, that holds back human progress. They're saying, in my personal atheist view, it's the same people that are still looking for some magic man in the sky to dictate them on how the world needs to be.
Sure.
And tell them where the morality is.
Yeah. No, yeah.
But that's it. I have to personally draw my disdain for that particular. I understand. For me, I look at religion from an anthropological standpoint to begin with. So to sit there and look at anyone, it's like I understand why this tool was useful when we were, making art in caves. But I feel like we've outgrown it, and people are refusing to give up on it, and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Right, Christian?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have different viewpoints on that, but I'm willing to let you have your say about your feelings about it, and I believe it has a different utility, and I think that's okay, and I think that's the thing that is great about the Liberty community is that the idea is that we can all have our viewpoints and we can all respect each other.
You have a horrible hedonist like me, and then you've got your ultra Catholic Tom Woodses,
right?
And we can both agree to disagree and let each other live their lives.
Sure.
We can all ride that train or down the tracks we want to go and
no
off at our stuff.
Yeah, no other ideology offers to just go do your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's important too. Because I think we started off pretty close to, or before the show, even talking about, the whole ANCAP, ANCOM thing. You just go live over there, I'll live over here. Just don't bother each other. I think that's an idea that needs to spread a little further.
Well, that's, you've got, like you said, Jeremiah and his anarcho-coalitionism thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, while I agree with him in theory, the problem is that the ANCOMs don't agree with any of the free market people because they believe that everything belongs to everyone. So your claims to ownership are illegitimate from the get. Well, then how there's no way for this to work, unfortunately. If you believe that what I have is yours innately, then that's the frustrating thing. Hey, we were talking earlier about the whole punk rock scene, and that's always been the big thing that frustrates me is that for a scene that prides itself in the DIY ethos and fuck authority, the ways in which they've kind of bought into the mainstream progressive mindset in some ways, fucking baffling to me.
Yeah, it's that Bart Simpson meme, that punk then versus punk now meme is 100% accurate. Yeah. I love that one. But yeah, that's the whole property thing between.
I remember when we used to say "fuck the state," guys.
Yeah.
Have you watched that video of that? You watched the video of that angry dude yelling in his car? This is my favorite video ever put on the internet.
That guy's amazing.
I want to get that guy on my show so fucking bad.
Hell yeah.
Y'all got soft.
Yeah. But fucking posers
sold out.
Yep. That guy's amazing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just real quick to touch on before we get to the point where we're wrapping up this show. You were talking about, I don't want to get into the whole property ANCAP versus ANCOM and stuff, but the bridge I've found between the more left-leaning anarchists, libertarians, whatever you want to call them, and right-leaning is agorism, the one for the free market. It's an excellent starting point. That's something I've been thinking about for a long time, is building bridges between these groups that seem to be just diametrically opposed in every way, because there's no point in fighting each other when the state's still around to fight.
Well, no, and absolutely. And while I say what I outline is a way that I envision that it would probably play out, I'm not saying it would. It's entirely possible I'm wrong. I think history would dictate that I'm probably not, but it is entirely possible that I am. In the meantime, I think the important thing is that we do deal with each other and learn how to cooperate and end the thing that is the giant 10,000-pound gorilla in the room, which is the state. And the fact of the matter is that personally, I'm of the left. I'm not, while I hang out with probably most right-wing libertarian types, I'm a bisexual man in a fucking interracial relationship with mixed skin, and I'm an artist by nature. So the idea, I'm a lefty. I am. But, economics, unfortunately, is economics, and it doesn't give a shit about how you feel about things. I want to make the world better for fucking black and brown people and gay people and everybody else in the world. And unfortunately, it just seems the more of the way that the the left of the world tries to do that, the worse off it is for those people, sadly.
Yeah. Nice.
And I'm pretty lucky in that I'm a white guy. Well, I would say that if it'd been born maybe 20 years earlier, I'd be pretty lucky. It's going to get real bad.
Getting hard out here for.
Yeah, it's already getting pretty
white
shitty,
guy.
but
I don't know.
unfortunately, I can't argue with the instinct that makes people hate white people, but I don't think it does anything good in the long run. I think the end game needs to be thought about a little bit more.
That's why I like the woods. The bear and the moose don't care what
Right?
color they are. They'll still fuck you up. So stay on your toes.
Same rules for everyone.
And they'll still be delicious the entire time.
Yeah.
Go for some venison right now.
Mm.
It's nice venison sausage.
Mm-mm. Well,
That's the sweet meat.
hell yeah. On that delicious note, let's call it a show. And we'll maybe talk more about this
Okay.
in the after hours. I'm also going to ask you guys that question I brought up at the beginning of if you had the whole world's attention, what would you tell them? So if anybody wants to hear that, if we've been doing this for a while now, I'm going to compile all of them eventually, possibly for a special 50th or 100th episode. But right now, if you go to patreon.com/the Dank Pod Stash, you can check out all the after hours content, including the answers to those questions, and a new series that's going to be coming up pretty soon in conjunction with the Counter Economist. Probably going to be out in October, hopefully looking at how to transition to living fully off of cryptocurrency, followed by some other interesting topics. So, Nicky P, Lizzie, thank you very much for joining me. That was awesome. Now we're going to go back to back, right? Doing your show after this.
That's
That's the plan.
Hell yeah. All right, y'all. Total freedom, no exceptions. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you later.
Omnipresent, whatever.